All right, thank y'all for coming. My topic is microplastics, and I'm assuming all of y'all have drinking out of a water bottle before, like Jackson has a Gatorade bottle right now, or eaten out of like a little plastic container. But that food or water you're drinking is not the only thing you're consuming. You're also consuming things called microplastics. So, what are microplastics? They are small particles less than 5 millimeters in size. You also have things called nanoplastics, which are down to 1 micron in size. So, things to compare. Oh, first we have, when I mention MNPs, that means micro and nanoplastics. So when you hear that through my presentation, just know that's what it means. So to compare, like the biggest microplastic you'll see is probably like the size of 1 grain of rice, which is 5 millimeters. And then you go down to like this is a picture of a strand of hair, which is about zero point 0.1 millimeters. And then you get down to grains of sand. And then the smallest down to nanometers is bacteria. So I have a question for y'all. How much plastic do you think the average adult consumes per year in terms of plastic bags? How many do you think? I know y'all know the answer, so if y'all want to say, you can. I don't care. 50. Correct. The experts estimate that adults might consume as much plastic as 50 plastic bags per year, or about 1 credit card per week. And this statistic is what initially drew me to this topic because something was just unsettling to me about hearing that. And so, to understand the impact of plastic, we first need to know how it's made. So let's take a look at the process of plastic production and what goes on into creating the materials we use every day. So most plastics we see every day, like plastic bags, bottles, and containers, are made from a material called polyethylene. Polyethylene is one of the most common types of plastic, and it's made from petroleum or natural gas. These are fossil fuels that are extracted from deep beneath the Earth's surface. What makes polyethylene so popular is that it is a very versatile, it's cheap to produce, it's lightweight, and can be molded into almost any shape. That's why we see it in so many things, everything from shopping bags to toys and food packaging. But plastic isn't just a simple substance. It's often mixed with other chemicals to give it certain properties that make it more useful for different products. These chemicals can modify the plastic's strength, flexibility, color, and even how it behaves in heat. For example, in some types of plastics, chemicals are added to make them more flexible. This is why some plastics feel softer and more bendable, like the plastics used in clothing or medical tubing. The key here is that base plastic like polyethylene can be adjusted with these added chemicals to fit the needs of the product it's being used for. Without these additives, many plastics would be too stiff, brittle, or not durable enough to serve their purpose. BPA, phthalates, and PFAS are some of these chemicals, which I'll get into later about the health effects of those chemicals. To really understand how much plastic is in our lives, we need to look at how much its production has grown over the years. Since plastic was first made in 1907, the amount of plastic produced has grown massively. It's increased by over 230 times. The big increase in plastic production has caused serious environmental problems. A lot of this plastic ends up in landfills, the ocean, or other places, hurting animals and polluting the environment. As production keeps growing, it's more important than ever to find better, more sustainable options and reduce how much plastic we use. Now let's look at how these regular plastics, like water bottles, turn down into microplastics. Microplastics start out as larger plastic items like bottles or bags. Over time, these plastics break down due to things like sunlight, weather, and physical wear. As they break down, they become smaller pieces, which are microplastics. As the process continues, microplastics break down even further into nanoplastics. These tiny particles can easily enter the environment and the food chain, causing serious health risks to both animals and humans. So where are these microplastics found? Absolute everywhere! Microplastics are found absolutely everywhere. Scientists have detected them in the air we breathe, the water we drink, and even the food we eat. They've been found in sea salt, honey, and even beer. But it doesn't stop there. Studies show that microplastics have been found in human tissues, including the lungs, liver, and even blood. With the particles now in our bodies, we have to ask, how do these MMPs affect human health? Now, let me first note, most of this data on microplastics is correlational, not causational, meaning that most of the data linking microplastics in humans is only associated with certain diseases such as heart failure, inflammation, and organ damage, but it has not been proven directly to cause these conditions. This is because the discovery of microplastics is a very new thing in the scientific community, and studies are only finding more and more alarming data on how these microplastics affect human health. Let's start with hormonal effects of plastics. Like I mentioned earlier, the main chemicals are BPA, phthalates, and PFAS. Let's start with BPA, or bisphenol A. BPA is a chemical that is used to make plastics hard and durable, especially in items like water bottles, food containers, and the lining of cans. However, studies have shown that BPA can leach out of these plastics and into the food or drink they contain. This can be dangerous because BPA is an endocrine disruptor, meaning it can interfere with the body's hormones, and it has been linked to various problems like reproductive issues and increased risk of cancer. Next, we have phthalates, which are chemicals used to make plastics more flexible. Phthalates are commonly found in products like toys, food, packaging, and vinyl flooring. Unfortunately, they are also linked to health concerns, including hormone disruption and developmental problems in children. Lastly, we have PFAS, which are per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, and they are a group of chemicals that are used to make plastics resistant to stains, water, and heat. They are found in items like non-stick cookware, waterproof clothing, and food packaging. PFAS are often called forever chemicals because they don't break down the environment, which means they accumulate over time in both the environment and the human body. PFAS have been associated with health problems such as liver damage, kidney disease, and developmental delays in children. These few chemicals are just a few in all the chemicals that are used in plastic production, and this is why it's important to address the effect that it has on humans' health and the environmental. The next slide, we have how can we avoid uh, microplastics. The main cause is stop drinking bottled water. So get your bottle and throw it away. Bottled water is one of the easiest ways to consume microplastics, and it's one of the highest microplastic containing items that is easily ingested into the human body. Original research thought a single liter of bottled water contained around 30,000 micro and nanoplastics, but more research as of 2024 reveals a much higher number, between 140,000 and 200 micro and nanoplastics per liter. Now, let me be clear, occasional use of plastic bottles won't harm you, but on the regular exposure to something, we can and should easily avoid water bottles. Other alternatives are stainless steel water bottles or reusable mugs. By making this simple change, we're protecting our health and making a positive impact on the environment. Second step of how we should avoid them is let your body do it for you. Liver detoxification. The liver plays a crucial role in removing harmful substances from our bodies, including microplastics. It's like the body's natural filter working nonstop to keep us healthy. Detoxification happens in two steps. First, the liver breaks down toxins into smaller parts. Think of it like cutting up a large piece of trash to make it easier to dispose of. Then it changes these toxins into a form that the body can easily remove either through urine, sweat, or waste. Certain foods can usually support this process. Vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower contain a powerful compound called sulforaphane, which helps the liver work more efficiently. So by choosing the right foods, we can give our bodies the support they need to detox and stay healthy. Now, why should Christians care about microplastics? I know this is a very cliche verse, but it's very important as a Christian. 1 Corinthians 6:19 through 20 says, "Do you not know that your bodies are a temple of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore honor God with your bodies." 1 Corinthians 10:23 also says, "I have the right to do anything you say, but not everything is beneficial. I have the right to do anything, but not everything is constructive." According to these verses, our bodies are sacred and belong to God. Microplastics are associated with harming our health, so Christians should make wise choices in what we are putting in our bodies. Next, a big problem with microplastics is idolatry, contentment, and overconsumption. Exodus 23 through 4 says, "You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself an image in form of anything in heaven above, or on earth beneath, or in the waters below." Idolatry isn't just statues, it's anything we prioritize over God. Society idolizes convenience and materialism, leading to plastic waste. Philippians 4:11 through 13 says, "I have learned to be content with whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. Whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want, I can do all this through him who gives me strength." True joy comes from God, not materialistic things. Avoiding plastic waste may be hard, but God strengthens us to make better choices. Do with this information what you will. I'm not here to tell you to live in fear of microplastics, but I'm just making you aware of what science is now emerging and uncovering that microplastics is negative to our health and the environmental impacts. The choice of to do is next is yours, but awareness is the first step towards change. Thank you.
No, man. So, a couple questions. First of all, good job. And it's one of those like gets kind of technical, a lot of details, but it was fascinating. Um, a lot of plastic. And you mentioned so like the first thing that comes to mind is like is most of the plastic that we're being exposed to is it primarily food related? Not food related, but like you mentioned water bottles and all that stuff. Is there any other way that we're not ingesting but like absorbing or whatever? Are there any other
Yeah,
problems that
so
can?
like when you wash your clothes, like the follicles of your clothing can get in the air, you breathe them in, like tires rubbing off, they're like
Mm-hmm.
microparticles get in the air and we breathe them in. There's many other ways that we ingest them.
Because as small as that gets, I mean, it seems like it's everywhere, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like science is now like as technology gets better, we're like able to see deeper and deeper and smaller, and we're seeing more microplastics in everything. Yeah, we see them even in babies, like newborn babies, like because they get into the mother and then they get into the baby, and so it's almost inevitable. We can't really
Yeah.
avoid them.
So then also like then my mind immediately I like what you said that you brought the conversation about the liver into it
Yeah,
because it's fascinating to see that we have this filtration system and it's not just our liver. The liver is like the primary one that, as far as like
yeah,
digestion and things like
yeah.
that. Is there anything? So you mentioned like the breathing part. And maybe and forgive me if this is like kind of a sidestep from what you were focusing on in your research. Is there anything in terms of like what the body does for us in terms of like the breathing part? Is there any type of like what happens with the? Is there any filtration that takes place with
I mean, obviously the
breathing
nose. I'm
process?
pretty sure like the nose is a very good filter to the air you're breathing in your body. I mean, that's why you want to breathe mostly through your nose and not through your mouth. But I mean, it also gets in your blood, like I mentioned. But your body does do a pretty good job of getting rid of foreign substances, like splinters, obviously, and like sicknesses. But when it's in your blood, there's this thing called the blood-brain barrier, and in women, there's blood follicle barrier, and men's blood testes barrier. But it's like so small, it gets past these barriers, so it gets into our brain, and so it's affecting brain and gets in, your reproductive parts and affects testosterone and all that.
Um, okay, so then I hear terms like biodegradable, like and I like the graphics that you were using. You know, one thing it's interesting to me that we've created this substance, plastic, that lasts forever. Like it can last as long as we want it to, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And everything that we use it for is always disposable stuff that we're using. The thing that we've made to last forever, we're using it to make things that are designed to be thrown away. And then you mentioned like all the water bottles, like a lot of I know like all the Stanleys and like the metal cups and stuff like that, mostly metal. But even in the like the plastics that we use for more permanent bottles and containers and stuff like that, a lot of like all the BPA free like marketing and stuff makes sense now because it's the BPA that's doing so much damage,
Yeah.
right? In terms of like, first of all, can you educate me a little bit more about like when I hear the term biodegradable, I'm assuming oh yeah it'll break down, but it seems like that's part of the problem is that the plastic is breaking down, and it's actually the breaking down that makes us more susceptible to
Yeah.
it, right? So is there a way that is there a truly biodegradable way to break this stuff down?
Well, I didn't really give that to my research, but I'm pretty sure there probably is a way to break things down properly, like recycling. If we do it properly, then these plastics won't get down to such small particles where it is affecting the environment more in our bodies. Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. Um, really, the fossil fuel thing too. Like, can you explain a little bit more, or expound a little bit more? What's the relationship between like you use the term fossil fuel, but I didn't really catch it in the context of what you were saying. Are we saying like it's the same materials that we use like in oil and gasoline and
Well, so like I was mentioning how plastics are made, they're made from polyethylene, which is made from petroleum or natural gas. So polyethylene is like the main substance of plastic, but then they add the chemicals and it makes it even worse.
um, yeah, So the stuff that's making it more permanent, the stuff that the chemicals that we're putting into it to make it harder, more pliable, more durable,
Yeah.
it's almost like the more we're making it last longer, the more harmful the chemicals are.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm taking it all in. Where it's like because it's one of those things where you can kind of take it for a grain of salt. It's like, oh yeah, plastics are everywhere, but what are we gonna do, right?
Yeah.
But that whole like the 50 bags thing and the credit card a week thing, like that messes with my brain a little bit. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah. Mess with mine too. That's why.
That's too much. I think. Right? Comments, questions? What do you got for Will? You want to ask him? Go ahead.
Well, I think so because I had a stat in here where it's talking about the world produced 460 million tons of plastic. I'm assuming third world countries might have more plastic than we do because they rely on more easier access things. But I don't know. I think that we honestly might, or they might. I don't know. I didn't really get to that research, but plastic is such a big thing in our country, mostly every country because it's everywhere, like in everything. Yeah.
And it maybe is something to where because it's so cheap, one of the things that makes it cheap is that a lot of stuff gets bottled and packaged
Yeah.
in these countries. Like, yeah, I get it, like they may not have as much like prepackaged food and stuff as like the typical American household would, but if they're packaging it, they're manufacturing. It's almost like they're dealing with it
Yeah.
in a whole different way that just gives them that much exposure. And it brings up something else I was thinking about. Like, it is interesting that all of this research is newer. We're getting better at it because I like that you made the distinction between correlation and causation. Just because we've seen a rise in still, these graphs are, we're charting the measurements of all this, but the metrics just because they're paralleling one another doesn't mean necessarily cause one another. But it seems like it's moving that way. It seems like we're figuring
Yeah,
it
I feel
out.
like we're getting closer and closer as technology improves. We'll eventually link things together.
And you got something?
Do you think that there's a substitute like it? I know like silicone's kind of a good substitute, but not like the same.
Yeah, well, I don't really know. I didn't really get that deep, but plastic is such a hard thing to get rid of. Like we'll never get rid of it because it lasts so long. So I'm just trying to bring a light to the plastic and how it affects humans' bodies and what you can do to do better with like affects your health. But I don't really get into like the substitutes.
And it kind of seems like along those lines, it kind of seems like what Matt was talking about earlier. Where
Yeah.
this is almost going to take like a paradigm shift for us. We're just kind of it's a cultural thing. That's a culture, right? Like it's a cultural thing that we just kind of expect the easy access, real quick, real fast, and then also disposable. So like on the front side of things, we want things right now, easy access. On the back side of things, we want to get rid of it as soon as possible. And yet that doesn't seem possible. Yeah.
Probably a bad way to word it. But what I mean is, bigger problem with people. I think it's kind of both because the producers are the ones that putting these chemicals and harmful things into plastics, but it's also a consumer thing because consumers are always wanting, like he said, easy access things like paper cups or plastic cups and anything like that because it's easier, it's easy to access, but no one's realizing what they're actually like using. Better solution. Use plastic less. I think it's kind of both because I feel like the if producers use it less, like if consumers use it less, then producers start producing less. But if producers also produce less, then consumers are going to use it less. So it's kind of a both way thing. I might have missed this. What are like what are the actual health risks? So they've been linked to diseases such as like heart disease, like I was mentioning, like fertility issues because microplastics can get in your, those parts. Sam?
I don't know if we have any
I think recycling, because then it can be repurposed into other things.
That's one of those, like, on that note, like, that's one of those things that I wish someone, not that I can dictate this, but that's kind of a project in and of itself.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we got the info download from all the problems with it, right? And there's this whole world of recycling that I know, like, how many of y'all like put stuff out to the curb to recycle or whatever? You got the blue bin or something like it happens a lot, right? But I know, like, and like the selfish part of me wants a student to do this project so I can learn. I don't have to research it myself because there's something in the back of my mind thinking the same truck that stuff's going in the same truck, right? They come and get my garbage, throw it in the back of the truck. They come and get my recycling and throw it in the back of the truck. Wait a second, and I wonder, like, maybe this is part of the problem is, like, again, a whole nother project is then what do we actually do from that point forward? Like, how is this? Because it's for all of you people out there that are, whether it's chemical engineering or just chemistry in general that you're interested in, it's one of those things that, like, real world application of just really fascinating science, right? Then on the flip side of that, well, not really the flip side. On the other side of that coin is, like, as a Christian, I like that this is what I meant with one of those projects where it's kind of a technical project. So, like, the biblical integration is kind of hard to, like, leave natural. So at some point you just got to cut it and say, why should Christians care about this kind of stuff? This world, this creation that God has given us is a gift, and that gift, that physical gift, extends towards our bodies. And so if we're just kind of nonchalant, throwing stuff out into the atmosphere and not really thinking twice about it, it seems like we're being really selfish, careless, I guess.
with the recycling process, whenever like you're saying like they break it down, right? Like new plastic stuff. That's where most of the microplastics come.
I think so because, I'll go back to this picture. This picture kind of shows plastics breaking down, and I think when you send things off to recycle, this is what they do. I mean, they think they're recycling to make it better, but also I feel like I didn't really get into my research. I'm going off the dome. I think this recycling could also play a huge factor in creating microplastics, but I'm not totally sure.
Anything else? All right, good job, Will.